It's an honor to kick off this new series of talks about AI. So thank you very much for the invitation. So I work at the Norwegian Reading Center, and my research is focusing on literacy and literacy instruction and assessment of literacy. And in the last few years, it's been very much about how we can use AI in these areas. So my interest in AI actually started some years ago, like for many people, because I was a little bit scared of it. Scared of especially of what it could do to literacy and literacy instruction. But I felt that AI is coming to education whether we want it or not. So we should try to understand it and see how we can benefit from it. So I decided to dive into it during my parental leave 4 years ago with my youngest daughter by spending some of the time when she was napping to read or work through this book, Machine Learning with R, which is a book with many worked examples of different aspects of AI. So she was a very good sleeper, and I got through the whole book during that leave, and it was a great book. But the content of this book is about as far as my technical knowledge of AI reaches. But since then, when I came back to work, I have been involved in several projects investigating the use of AI in reading and writing instruction and in the assessment of these of reading and writing. And it's some of that work that I will share today with you. And today it will be mostly related to the ILIT project, which is a project that we've been working on for some years now, that is approaching its end, where we use AI to scaffold engagement in reading and writing in school for children from 8 to 12 years old. The ILIT project, it's an Erasmus Plus project where we are collaborating with some of our friends from the European Consortium of Innovative Universities, the ECIU. In this project, it's Dublin City University, it's Twente University and the University of Aveiro, and the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And we're also collaborating with schools in all of these, in the countries of these different universities. So in the photo, you can see all the people who are involved in the project from a workshop that we had. So the goal of that project, as I said, is to build a platform that uses AI to scaffold students' writing. When we conceived this project back in 2021, using AI, generative AI in a very interactive way to generate texts, that wasn't really on our radar back then. So at that time, we imagined two central things that AI could do for us. It was recommender systems, and it was machine translation. So we could use machine translation to make texts available across student text available across language and countries to students in other countries who could work on them. And we could use recommender systems to distribute texts to different readers based on their interests. So to ensure that everyone could read texts that they would feel were relevant to them. So together, these two would address a need that the schools had in all the countries in the project, which was the need for meaningful writing situations where students can write texts to an authentic audience that's not their teacher. So this is something we know is important for motivation for writing, and it's also something that's often quite difficult to achieve in schools, at least to achieve it on a regular basis. So I'll show you how this works in the platform, and then I'll explain what lies behind it. So just a few comments first on how the platform was made. We developed the IDs for it in a workshop with those people that you saw in the image some slides ago. And based on that, NetOp UIS, which is our university's department developing digital teaching and e-learning, they developed a lo-fi prototype based on this. And based on that lo-fi prototype, the platform itself was developed by Grensesnitt, which is a local IT company situated at Bryne, not so very far from here. So here is the platform, and I have to say that this is staging environment where the texts are not authentic. So for privacy reasons, I have to show you this one instead of the production environment where the students are now working. So all the text we'll see in here are either written by researchers or they are AI generated. So this is the student screen in the platform, and there are 4 modules here: read, write, review, and learn. And I won't talk about the learn module today because it doesn't involve AI, but I will talk about the 3 others. So if we start in the write module, here students can write new texts. So as I said, when we conceived the project back in the autumn of 2021, the large language models and generative AI wasn't really on our radar, but it came with force very early in the project. So we have spent a lot of time discussing if and how we should use that. And we have added this function here called Help Me Start, where students can get a prompt to get their text started, to avoid their writer's block or the fear of the blank page. So here the student can write what they want to write about, for example, an essay about AI. And then they get a response from the AI, which is a short feedback on the ID and some questions to help them get started. So I'll show you the prompt behind this. We are using Microsoft Azure OpenAI service with the model GPT-4, and the prompt is like you see here. So some brief comments on this. We want the model to praise the ID that the student has for their writing, as this is getting a sort of validation of the ID can give a good impetus to get the writing started. And then we also want the model to ask questions that can spark cognitive work in the student to prepare their writing, but without actually doing the writing for them. Because doing the translation in their head, the translation first of IDs into language and then a language into written text, doing that work in their head, that's how they learn to write, and also part of how they learn to think. So it's important that the text from the AI here is questions and not finished text ready to be inserted. So I'll show you how it was earlier. It was like this, where the model was asked to write the first lines of the story. So, and that could give something, an output, something like this, what you see to the right here. It didn't work. The students were not helped to start their writing, and the model did the work for them. So I think this is quite typical for many users of AI in education in the last few years. So in the beginning, there was, when the new possibilities came, there were lots of excitement. We have to include this in some way, and it wasn't always included. It wasn't always appropriate to the goals that we have in education. But then it matures, and with time, we start using it in more in ways that are more appropriate pedagogically. So yeah, I think everyone can see that the version to the right here is best if the goal is to scaffold students' thinking. So it's a simple prompt, but it really seems to work in the project. We are piloting the platform now. Students are using it 4 times. And we're currently on the 3rd tryout, and we see from the observation reports from all the countries that this is useful to get them started. So I'm observing it personally in Norway, and I see that the most students start hammering away very quickly when they receive their assignment. And it also seems to be useful for students that struggle a bit more to get started. I've seen several times students who stare at their screen when they get the assignment, and I ask them, what do you want to write about? And I don't know, they say. And well, what are you interested in? What could be fun to write about? For example, gaming. And then, well, write in here, I want to write a story about the game X, their favorite game. And, or I want to write a non-fiction text about game X. And then when I come back a few minutes later, they have written a lot. So it seems to work. So that's for getting started. When the students have written their text, they... okay, I have to copy-paste something here, because I don't want to write the text while you are watching. When the students have written their text, they can also get feedback from the AI. So when they've written a certain amount, like I did now, this button appears with called feedback. And it gives some short feedback on some aspects of the text, and then also some hints at how they can make it better in the form of questions. So I'll show you the prompt behind that as well. It's like this, and the reasoning behind it is similar as for the previous one. The AI should praise one thing, so now the student has actually written something. There is something praiseworthy there, and the feedback should focus on that in a concrete manner, and then it should ask questions to spark thinking in the student on how the text could be improved even more. Here too, there was a previous version where the AI generated text for the students, and for the same reason as for the other one, we discarded that. Students didn't have to think for themselves, and they learned nothing. So the second version is better here as well. And it also seems to work well from the informal observations we are doing. Students are reading the feedback, and they are often acting on it. One last thing to show from the platform is that there is also an image generation, AI image generation, to create cover images to the students' text. So when they're finished, they will get an AI-generated image that matches the text. This process involves GPT-4 generating a prompt for DALL-E 3 to create a child-friendly illustration. So the image is kind of a visual feedback on the student's writing. The model, so to speak, reads the text and responds with the image. We see that from the observations that this feature is extremely popular among the students. They are very excited about how the illustration to their text will be. They're also sometimes quite disappointed by the results because the model is not always, the illustrations are not always very accurate. For example, a girl wrote a story about two girls experiencing different adventures in the forest, and the model returned an image of two boys. Big disappointment. Another recurring complaint is that the images are too nice. They're too child-friendly. So, for example, scary stories can receive images that are not so scary, or evil monsters will look harmless and even friendly, which is, of course, related to our prompting the model to make child-friendly pictures. And this is a dilemma, a real dilemma, I think, between scaffolding the students' creativity on the one side and protecting them from too scary things on the other. So in this project we chose the safest, but from the student's perspective maybe the most boring solution. So when the student is finished, the text goes to the teacher, who has to approve it, and it's then automatically translated to the other languages in the project. So Catalan, Portuguese, Norwegian, bokmål, and nynorsk. And then it's sent to the students in those countries. So here too we use GPT-4 through the Microsoft Azure OpenAI service to translate, and we specify that the text is written by a 10-year-old. And when the text is finished, it ends up here in the review module, where so here the Irish student can see the raw machine translations from the other countries, from students in the other countries. and they can choose to review those texts. So the idea here is that the machine needs help from children to make the translation authentic. So AI might, for example, do what we in this project have often called to flatten the language of the text. So render the text in a way that would be unnatural in the target language. And it needs help from children to do the translation as well as it should be. So the students get the assignment to fix the text and make it a good text in their language. But they can also, other assignments are also possible. The teacher can ask them to continue the story, for example, create a different ending, work on the text in different ways. So we think this is this work on the machine translations are high-value learning experience for the students. Through editing the translated text, they engage in text work that is similar to how text work happens in real life or in life outside school. For example, here at the university, where we constantly work on each other's texts, and also recently in collaboration with AI. And we also think the experience promotes AI literacy because it gives students a hands-on experience with the strengths and the shortcomings of machine translations. And in the observations so far, we've seen that the students often correct errors in punctuation or capital letters, easy and superficial things like that. They also enjoy continuing to write on other students' texts, changing things. One boy was very happy that he had changed a text written by a Catalan student where Barcelona won a football match, and he changed this to Real Madrid winning instead. So I had much fun with that. What we have seen is that it's more difficult for the students to amend what we call the flattening of the language. There are many cases where I, as an adult, can see very easily that this text is awkward in Norwegian, but where the student thinks it's fine. Yeah. So finally, if we go to the read module, this is where all the approved texts in that language goes, and the student can use it to read texts. And this module here, and so the review module I just showed, and this read module here, that's where the recommender systems in the platform kicks in. So the first 2 or 3 texts here are recommended to the student based on what they wrote. So this student here, he got these 3 texts recommended. He wrote these 2, Norway and the Mad Banana. AI is pending review. And so he wrote those 2, and then he got these 3 as a recommendation. So I'll show you how that works now. Go out to the platform. So the recommender system here, it's built in a 3-step process. So first we use topic modeling to identify topics in a text that are common to many texts written by students. So I think I mentioned that my technical knowledge has its limits. So this was done by our colleagues in University of Twente, Johannes Steinrücke and Mariam Amir Harry. They used a BERT topic modeling module in Python to which is a method that finds easily interpretable topics that are common to many texts. So their approach established these topics in an unsupervised way without the text being labeled in any way. And then it returned for each text the probability that it belonged to each of the topics. The model here was trained on 415 texts written by students from all the countries in the project, and it resulted in 19 different topics, the ones shown here. And these 19 topics were then regrouped by us into just 5, following what we thought could be easily explainable topics. So one topic that contained stories that are scary or about action, superheroes, one with stories that are more from the fantasy genre, one with texts about leisure activities and interests, and one with texts about school, friendship, everyday life, and one with text about animals and fruits. And Why did we choose to merge the 19 topics into just 5? In recommender systems in online platforms such as Netflix and things like that, they often have, they are much more fine-grained and maybe have thousands of categories. So one answer is, of course, the amount of data that we have available. So I said we trained it on 415 texts. In addition, these texts are often quite short, so it doesn't give the model a lot to chew on to make a very fine-grained system. And another answer is that with many categories, so with a very fine-grained system, recommendations could become too specific. Students could end up in a very small bubble, receiving only text about Taylor Swift, for example, or only text about football. So merging, regrouping was an easy way of broadening the scope. Of course, the students who are interested in Taylor Swift are not necessarily the same ones as those that are interested in football. And probably they're not, actually. So it's quite complicated, and there are many ways that we could amend this still. But this is the first step. And it's the first step of the process also, of which the result are these 5 categories. The second step is to associate topics with texts and students. So the texts, they have probabilities for all 5 categories, and this is now collapsed into having only one. So this text, for example, Norway, it had a relation to all the 5 topics, and now we say that the text has this topic 0. So each text has one topic. And then each student is given 2 favorite topics, or one, based on the text that they wrote. So this student here is the one I showed you earlier. He wrote these 2 texts, the Mad Banana and Norway. Both of these are from topic 0. And then this student has only topic 0 associated with him. And the third step is to recommend text to students based on the topics they have attributed to them. So these recommendations are shown as the first 2 or 3 texts in the student's read and review module. So this guy who had only topic 0, he received the 3 texts from that topic. And this girl, she wrote 1 text from topic 0 and 1 from topic 1, and then she received a text from each of those. And the rest of the texts are the same for everyone. So there's ample opportunity to discover texts outside of your favorite topics. But the theory is that when the first 2 texts are recommended based on interests, it can increase engagement. And this is what we intend to measure in a study we're conducting. So I said that students are using the platform 4 times, or there are 200 students, around 50 from each country, that use it so systematically 4 times. The first 2 times they use it without the recommender systems, and the second 2 times they use it with. And then they answer a survey every time, tapping into their engagement, and we will compare the 2 conditions and see if there's a change. And we will also come back a 5th time to the schools to interview students and teachers. So as I said, we're at T3 now, and a challenge related to this study is that the results from T1 and T2 are very positive. So it seems that even without the recommender systems, the platform and maybe participation in the research project, it's very exciting for the students, new and exciting. And yeah, so there will be probably a ceiling effect, and it can be difficult to detect an improvement between the 2 conditions. But we will see. We will publish the results of these investigations in 2 papers, but if you want to read more about it already now, you can check out our book chapter in this recently published book, Reimagining Literacy in the Age of AI. So in this book chapter, we present the platform and the theoretical justifications for it in a bit more depth than I've done here. So I'll want to end the presentation by summing up some central challenges that have appeared in this project and that are important, I think, when applying different kinds of AI in education, and possibly also relevant for other domains as well, for some of them at least. So one important thing is that AI should scaffold and should support students' thinking and should not do the work for the students, at least not the work which is what they are supposed to learn. So memory is the residue of thought, as the cognitive psychologist Daniel Willingham says, and this means that the students have to think about what they are supposed to learn. That's how they learn it. So when AI thinks for them, they miss an opportunity to learn. And this seems straightforward enough, but the AI comes with so many possibilities for taking over our cognitive work, which are actually tempting to take if we keep our guards down. So I think we saw an instance of this in this project when we made the AI write the start for the students. So let's make sure we keep the good cognitive tasks for ourselves and let AI do the ones that we gain less from doing. Another challenge or problem is that we saw is what we call the flattening of the language. So for example, the models are trained mostly on English material, and even if they are also impressive in Norwegian, they still inflect the Norwegian language in some way, or the Catalan language or the Portuguese language. And what appeared in our observations, as I said, was that students are not very sensitive to this. They don't see the awkwardness of some AI translation into nynorsk, for example. And this is, of course, understandable. So they are 10, 11 years old. So really, how could they see this without training, explicit training in it? But it means that the language of the models can have a big influence on the development of the Norwegian or the Catalan language. A third challenge was raised by the image generation and the students' complaints that the images were too kind or were boring. So when letting students use AI, we should make sure that it doesn't produce content that can harm them. And as the models can be unpredictable, it seems better to err on the side of caution. But the result is, to some extent at least, that the students' creativity is thwarted by this. So where should the balance go in this respect? And finally, how big should the AI bubble be? Or how reflective should what the philosopher Shannon Waller calls the AI mirror, how reflective should that be? Recommender systems present great opportunities to adapt instruction to the needs of everyone. But of course, it also presents a great risk of being stuck gazing into the mirror. So what should the balance be here? How personalized should education be? And what's the place for common experiences that are the same for where everyone works on the same thing? So I don't have the answers to any of these questions, but the work we did in this project, it highlighted many of these problems, and I hope the data we are collecting now can give some elements of answers, and we will in any case continue to explore this in the years to come. So thank you very much.